Are you seeking a more meaningful spiritual connection beyond the everyday rituals? This video reveals a Goldsmith secret about Christ that will transform your understanding and deepen your personal spiritual perspective. Discover how moving beyond mere observance can lead to a more profound, impactful relationship with the divine. Your spiritual journey is about to get an upgrade. All right, family, settle in for a second. Let's get quiet. Now, how would Joel himself kick this off? He wouldn't hit you with a bunch of fancy theology talk. Nah. He'd look out at everyone, real calm, and he'd say something that would cut right through the noise. He'd start by calling out the game we're all playing. He'd say something like, "So, you think you know the deal with this Christ thing? Ha! You've been doing the church gig, saying the prayers, maybe dropping a check in the basket, and you're still feeling kinda me, like something's missing. You're chasing the vibe but can't quite lock in the signal." That was his whole move. He'd call out that itch we all feel but can't scratch. He knew we were all tired of just going through the motions, the rituals, the empty routines, thinking that was the whole point. Well, buckle up, because what he uncovered about the real, raw power of the Christ wasn't about adding another item to your spiritual to-do list. It wasn't about getting on your knees. It was about tapping into a frequency that's already blasting 24/7, right where you're sitting. He found the cheat code, the back door to a peace and power that doesn't come from outside but erupts from within. So, if you're ready to ditch the rulebook and find out what this is really about, you gotta stick around for the whole thing. And if this hits you right in the soul, do us a solid like the video, drop a 777 in the comments if you're tuning into this new frequency, and subscribe so you don't miss the deep dive. Let's get into it. Of course, here is the expansion of your first keynote, continuing directly from the flow of the introduction. So, if you're ready to ditch the rulebook and find out what this is really about, let's get into it. This first point is the foundation of everything Joel laid down. We're talking about ditching the rulebook to find the flow. Now, what does that even mean? We all have these rulebooks, right? They're not always physical books. They're the mental checklist we carry around for being a good spiritual person. Gotta pray before meals, gotta get to a building on a certain day, gotta say the right words, read the right verses. And look, there's nothing wrong with any of that on the surface. But Joel saw a major trap there. He saw that we were mistaking the map for the territory. We were so busy following the directions perfectly that we forgot to look up and experience the actual destination. The rituals become the whole game. It becomes about external performance, doing the thing so you can check the box and feel like you're right with God. But that's a spiritual hamster wheel. You're running and running, following all the rules, but you're not actually going anywhere new on the inside. You're just getting tired. That feeling of meh. That emptiness after you've done everything, right? That's the proof that the rule book is failing you. It's giving you the form of godliness, but it's completely missing the power. It's like having the absolute best, most high-tech recipe for chocolate cake, but you never, ever get to taste the cake. You just keep reading the recipe over and over, thinking that's the same thing. Joel's bombshell was this: the Christ, the real deal, isn't a set of rules to be obeyed. It's a conscious living presence. It's a flow of infinite intelligence and love that is already in operation, right here, right now. Your job isn't to follow a manual to somehow attract this presence. Your job is to get your own mental clutter, your own rule-following ego, out of the way so you can realize it's already flowing. You don't create the flow. You align with it. You yield to it. Think of it like a river. The rule book is you standing on the bank with a detailed list of instructions on how to be a perfect swimmer. You're studying the strokes. You're practicing the breathing on dry land. You're measuring the current. You're doing everything by the book. But you're still on the bank. You're separate from the water. Finding the flow is the moment you stop analyzing the river from the outside and you finally just jump in. Suddenly, you're in it. You're supported by it. You're moving with its power. The rules didn't get you there. Letting go of your separation did. This is the monumental shift. Goldsmith is moving us from a religion of doctrine to a consciousness of experience. It's not about what you're supposed to evdo. It's about what you can realize and become from the inside out. All those rituals and rules, they were only ever meant to be training wheels, pointers to get you to a certain state of awareness. But if you never take the training wheels off, you'll never know what it truly feels like to ride. You'll be forever dependent on the external support. The real spiritual life begins when the training wheels come off and you discover the innate balance you've had all along. That's the flow. It's the effortless being that happens when you stop trying so hard to perform spirituality and start allowing it to live through you. This is why the rule book has to go. It's a crutch you were meant to outgrow. And that's the crucial pivot, because once you ditch that external rule book, you're forced to ask the real question. Okay, if it's not about the rules, then what is this crest I'm supposed to be connecting with? And this is where Joel drops the ultimate truth bomb that changes everything. We have to get this straight. Christ ain't a person, it's the ultimate vibe. Now, hold on, don't check out. I know that sounds wild to ears trained in traditional religion. We've all seen the pictures, the statues, the guy with the beard in the flowing white robe. For centuries, we've been sold this idea that Christ is a historical figure, a person separate from us, a celestial CEO we have to petition for blessings. But that, according to Goldsmith, is the foundational misunderstanding that keeps us stuck in ritual. It keeps the powers out there. If Christ is a person, then he's a separate entity, and spirituality becomes a long-distance relationship where you're hoping he picks up your call. But what if that's not it at all? What if the story of Jesus is actually a cosmic metaphor, a perfect illustration of what happens when a human being becomes so utterly transparent, so completely vacant of personal ego and will, that the one universal divine consciousness, the Christ, can shine through them unimpeded? Jesus the man was the vessel, the Christ was the content. He was the individual flute that allowed the breath of God to play a singular, beautiful melody. Your job isn't to worship the flute, your job is to become one yourself. So, what is this ultimate vibe? It's the animating intelligence behind the entire universe. It's the creative principle that orchestrates galaxies and guides the seed to sprout. It's the infinite, unconditioned, loving mind that is the actual substance of all being. It's not a guy in the sky, it's the very fabric of the sky and the earth and you. This Christ is the divine logos, the word, the active, living truth that is forever expressing itself as harmony, as life, as supply, as peace. It's the operating system of reality itself. When you get this, the whole game changes. You stop looking for God and start looking I as God. You stop praying to a distant Christ and start realizing that your very awareness, your I am-ness, is the very place where this Christ is happening. It's the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. This isn't some special privilege reserved for one holy man 2,000 years ago. This is the core identity of every single one of us. We're all individual expressions of that one infinite consciousness, just like every wave is a unique expression of the one ocean. This is the ultimate vibe, the frequency of pure being. It's not something you believe in. It's something you tune into. It's the signal of harmony, wholeness, and perfect life that is forever broadcasting. Your sense of lack, your fear, your sickness, that's just static. That's the ego's noise interrupting the clear signal. The spiritual journey, then, isn't about acquiring something new. It's a process of removing the static, the false beliefs, the personal sense of separation, so that the signal that's always been there can come in loud and clear. You don't need to find the Christ. You need to recognize that the Christ is what you and everyone else truly are once all the personal drama and mental clutter is silenced. This recognition is the game changer. Because if the Christ is this ultimate, impersonal vibe, this divine consciousness that is our true identity, then the entire search gets flipped on its head. You stop scanning the horizon for a savior and you start turning within. This brings us to the bedrock of the entire mystical journey. Your inner sanctum is the real HQ. For our whole lives, we've been programmed to look for answers out there. We look to preachers, to books, to gurus, to the approval of others, to the perfect job, the perfect relationship. We're like satellites, constantly searching for a signal from some external tower. We treat our own inner world like a messy basement we'd rather not visit, thinking the real power, the real authority must be somewhere else. More holy, more together, more somewhere. But Joel would look you dead in the eye and tell you that's the oldest lie in the book. The kingdom of God is within. Not up in the sky, not in a building downtown, but right here in the silent, sacred space of your own conscious awareness. That's the real command center. That's HQ. What does that even mean practically? It means the peace that passes all understanding isn't a reward you get for good behavior. It's a state you access by going within, the guidance you're begging for from some external deity. It's already broadcasting from the center of your own being, the supply for every need. It's not in your bank account, it's in the infinite creative potential of this inner Christ consciousness. Your inner sanctum isn't some dusty, quiet room in your mind. It's a dynamic, living, intelligent presence. It's the seat of sovereignty. It's where God, as your own life, lives and moves and has its being. But you'll never hear the transmission if you never tune the receiver. This is why all the external rituals, by themselves, ultimately fail. They keep you oriented outward. They make you a spiritual tourist, always visiting holy sites but never building your own altar. Going within isn't about navel-gazing or selfish introspection. It's about shifting the source of your authority from the world to the spirit. It's the difference between being a branch, desperately trying to get sap from another tree, and realizing you're connected to the vine itself. All the sustenance, all the intelligence, all the life flows from that connection. This is the great interiorization. It means when a problem arises, your first response isn't to panic and call for backup from the outside world. Your first response is to get still, to go to your inner sanctum, and in that silence, listen for the still small voice. Not a voice that speaks in words, necessarily, but a knowing, a feeling, an intuitive nudge. It's about consulting your internal CEO instead of the intern committee of worldly opinions and fears. This is where you move from being a victim of circumstances to being a master of your inner world, which in turn transforms your outer world. The world outside is just an effect, a projection. HQ is the cause. And when you take your seat in the captain's chair at headquarters, you stop reacting to the storms on the view screen, and you start commanding from a place of unshakable peace. Of course, here is the expansion of your fourth keynote, continuing the flow directly from the previous one. He says us, and that act of taking your seat in the captain's chair, of consciously turning within to that inner sanctum, is where we completely redefine our most fundamental spiritual practice. This is the moment we realize that prayer ain't begging, it's tuning in. Think about how most of us were taught to pray. It's a transaction, right? It's us down here with our list of wants and needs, sending up a request to a God up there, hoping we've been good enough, said the right words, or prayed hard enough to get a wise. It's spiritual customer service. Hello, God. Yeah, I'd like to order one healing, a side of financial breakthrough, and can you expedite shipping on that new job? Thank you. We're treating God like a divine vending machine or a celestial genie, and when the healing doesn't come or the job falls through, we feel ignored, rejected, like we didn't have enough faith. That entire model is built on separation. It's built on the idea that God is separate from you, and you have to somehow convince him to part with a little bit of his goodness. But if everything we've been uncovering is true, if the Christ is the ultimate vibe of infinite consciousness and your inner sanctum is the very seat of that power, then that whole model of prayer collapses. It has to. You don't beg for what is already your own substance. You don't ask for a piece of the pie when you are already in the kitchen. Goldsmith's revelation was that true prayer has nothing to do with informing God of your needs or changing God's mind. God, as divine consciousness, already knows your need and is already the very substance of its fulfillment. The purpose of prayer isn't to get God to do something. It's to get you to realize what God is already being. So, if it's not begging, what is it? It's tuning in. It's the conscious act of adjusting your own mental and spiritual receiver to the frequency of harmony, wholeness, and perfection that is forever being broadcast from your inner HQ. It's the process of quieting the static of the personal, egoic mind, the fear, the doubt, the sense of lack, so that the clear, powerful signal of the Christ can come through. Think of a radio. The music is already filling the air all around you. The radio station isn't holding back, waiting for you to ask nicely. The problem is never with the broadcast. The problem is that your dial is tuned to the wrong station, or there's too much interference. Prayer is the act of turning the dial to the right frequency and cleaning up the interference. This is a passive, receptive activity, not an active, demanding one. It's not about striving or straining. It's about yielding. It's about getting still, going within, and in that silence, listening. Not for words, but for a feeling, a knowing, a sense of divine presence that dissolves fear, a wave of love that washes away resentment, an intuitive nudge that provides direction. You aren't asking for peace, you are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of peace itself, which is God, and then experiencing peace as a natural consequence. You aren't begging for supply, you are realizing your oneness with the infinite source of all supply, and then watching as channels for its expression open up in your outer experience. This kind of prayer changes you. It aligns your consciousness with reality, and when your consciousness is aligned with the harmony of spirit, that harmony must, by its very nature, appear as your experience. This shift from begging to tuning in completely redefines our entire address in the universe. It moves our sense of power and presence from a distant, hoped-for destination to an immediate, lived-in reality. This brings us to the natural, breathtaking implication of all this. The kingdom's not a location, it's your connection. For so long, we've been sold a postcard version of heaven. It's a place, a glorious city with pearly gates and golden streets, somewhere far away, up in the clouds, that we might get to visit after we die if we've collected enough righteousness points. We think of the kingdom of God as a divine retirement community in the sky, and because it's a location, it's always future tense. It's out there, and later on. This keeps us perpetually waiting, hoping, and longing for a salvation that never seems to arrive in the present moment. It's a spiritual deferral of happiness. But Joel Goldsmith, echoing the real message of Jesus, shatters that entire concept. The kingdom of God is within you, Jesus said. It's not a geographical coordinate, it's a state of consciousness. It's not a place you go. It's a connection you realize. Think of it like Wi-Fi. The kingdom isn't the router in the other room. The kingdom is the Wi-Fi signal itself, invisible, omnipresent, and full of the potential for communication, intelligence, and connection. You don't pray to get to the Wi-Fi. You simply connect your device to the Wi-Fi that is already everywhere in the house. Your device in this metaphor is your individual awareness. When you are connected, you have access to all the intelligence, information, and power of the network. When you're disconnected, you're operating on your limited, stored-up data, running down your battery, feeling isolated and powerless. This kingdom as connection is the active, living link between your individual I am-ness and the great I am of universal Christ consciousness. It is the conscious union, the seamless flow where the wave knows itself to be one with the ocean. This connection isn't something you have to build from scratch or earn. It is the fundamental truth of your being. You are already hardwired for it. The only thing that exists is a state of conscious awareness of that connection, or a state of ignorance of it. The sin that the Bible talks about is simply this state of ignorance, of being offline from your divine source, believing yourself to be a separate, lonely device. When you understand this, your entire spiritual ambition changes. The goal is no longer to get to heaven. The goal is to realize heaven, to become so consciously aware of this inner connection that the harmony, peace, and omnipresence of the kingdom become the very atmosphere of your life, right here, right now. You begin to see that every challenge, every problem, every moment of lack or fear is just a symptom of a temporarily weak signal. The solution is never to fight the problem on the outside, but to retreat within and re-establish the strength of your connection. You stop trying to rearrange the furniture in a dark room, and instead you focus on flipping the light switch. The connection is the switch. When that connection is strong and clear in your consciousness, it illuminates your entire experience. Supply isn't something you chase, it's what flows through the connection. Healing isn't something you beg for. It's the natural state of an individual who is fully conscious of their oneness with the wholeness of spirit. Your life ceases to be a desperate quest to reach a holy city and becomes the natural, effortless expression of the holiness you are already connected to. And this is where the rubber meets the road. If the kingdom is a connection we realize, not a place we travel to, then how in our crazy, busy, notification buzzing world do we actually plug in? How do we strengthen that signal? The answer is the most counterintuitive, yet most powerful, practice in the entire mystical arsenal. The secret's in the silence, not the show. We live in a world that worships the show. The big, loud, dramatic displays, the emotional worship services, the eloquent public prayers, the perfect spiritual social media posts. We equate noise with power and activity with progress. But in the realm of the spirit, it's the exact opposite. The world of effect is loud, the world of cause is silent. God is not in the earthquake, the wind, or the fire, but in the still, small voice that comes after all the noise has died down. All the external rituals, the chanting, or the lengthy prayers, they have their place as training wheels, but they can become a form of spiritual noise that actually prevents us from hearing the one thing we need to hear. We're so busy talking to God, we leave no space for God to talk through us. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a positive, potent force. It is the womb of all creation. In the absolute silence of your own being, when you consciously quiet the chatter of your personal mind, your worries, your to-do lists, your opinions, your memories, you are doing the most profound spiritual work possible. You are not just relaxing, you are making yourself vacant. You are clearing out the tenant of ego so that the landlord, the divine consciousness, can take full possession. In that sacred hush, a transfer of authority takes place. You are stepping aside and letting the principle of the universe operate through you as you. This is the secret Joel uncovered. You don't think your way to God. You can't figure out spiritual truth with the intellect. The personal mind is the problem, not the solution. Truth is revealed in the gaps between your thoughts. It's felt in the stillness that follows when you consciously surrender the need to control, manage, and understand everything. It's in this silence that the Christ, the ultimate vibe, announces itself not as a thought, but as a felt sense of presence, a wave of peace, an intuitive knowing that resolves problems the mind couldn't untangle. This is where real healing happens, not because you begged for it, but because in the silence you touched the reality of wholeness and your body conformed to that truth. This is where supply is recognized, not because you outlined your need, but because in the quiet, you felt the infinite substance of your source and your world rearranged to reflect that abundance. The show is the ego's attempt to prove its own spirituality. The silence is the soul's surrender to the spirit that already is. Going within to that quiet place isn't running away from the world. It's going to the control room to reset the entire system. The more you cultivate this practice of inner silence, the more you carry that quiet center with you into the noise of daily life. You stop being a ping-pong ball bounced around by external circumstances because you are anchored to the rock of stillness within. The answers you seek, the peace you crave, the power you need, they aren't manufactured in the frenzy of activity. They are revealed, received, and radiated from the limitless depths of your own sacred silence.